Imagine a pastor, a man who was supposed to bring faith, compassion, and hope to people. Now imagine that this man becomes the commander of a unit that strangles people in gas vans. This is the technology of mobile gas chambers, and arranges mass shootings of civilians. Ernst Biberstein personally coordinated the murders of thousands of people. Men, women, children, without trial, without mercy, without regret. After the end of the war, he served 10 years in prison and was released under an amnesty. Biberstein returned to his native Nuremberg, trying to hide his terrible past. He got a job in the church administration, as if starting a new life. He will live for almost 3 more decades. Today we will tell you about the shocking biography of this man. Childhood and youth. Ernst Emil Heinrich Biberstein, known as Ernst Szymanowski before changing his surname, was born on February 15, 1899 in the small town of Hilchenbach, in the province of Westphalia, German Empire. His family belonged to the middle class. His father worked on the railroad, a stable and respected profession in Germany at that time. In 1906, the family moved to Nuremberg, an industrial city in the north of the country. There, Ernst received a classical liberal arts education at the gymnasium. Studying was easy for him, and strict discipline and order in the family laid the foundations of character. Diligence, obedience to authority, and the desire for recognition. When the First World War began, Ernst was only 17 years old. But like many of his peers, he did not stand aside. In July 1917, he was drafted into the army. He spent the last year of the war on the Western Front, where the fiercest fighting took place. After returning to a devastated and humiliated Germany after the end of the war, he returned to his former dreams and continued studying theology at Kiel University. By 1923, he had successfully passed all the necessary exams and received the right to be a pastor. In December 1924, Ernst Szymanowski began his ministry as a pastor in a small parish in Kadina. His career developed steadily and predictably. In 1925, he married Anna Damlos, a native of Nuremberg. 3 children were born in this marriage. At first glance, his life looked prosperous. Family, faith, respected profession. But underneath the external stability, internal discontent grew with Germany, its weakness, humiliation after Versailles, and instability in the country. Like many Germans of the time, Ernst was looking for new landmarks. And soon he found them in the ideology of National Socialism. How did the pastor become a Nazi? By the mid-1920s, Germany was plunging into chaos. Economic crisis, hyperinflation, political violence. Many have lost faith in the old ways. Ernst Szymanowski was one of those who sought new answers to old questions. On July 19, 1926, he officially joined the National Socialist German Workers' Party. His ideological path began not from the front of military operations, but from the church pulpit. He became an active supporter of the idea of national Christianity, where faith was intertwined with radical nationalism. Soon, Szymanowski became known as the pastor of the assault troops. He actively helped create Nazi cells in Kaltenkirchen and the surrounding area. His sermons were gradually filled with political slogans about the greatness of the German nation, the danger of foreign elements, and the need to purify society. After the Nazis came to power in 1933, he was promoted to become a senior pastor in the city of Segeberg. There he founded the German Christians Group, a church movement that supports Nazi ideology and anti-Semitism in church life. Szymanowski quickly became one of the activists seeking to completely subjugate the church to the demands of the new regime. He was a member of the Anti-Semitic Union for the German Church, which demanded the expulsion of Jews from all religious communities. In April 1934, he even applied for the post of bishop in Lübeck. However, the church authorities, despite the pressure of the regime, refused him, fearing his too open politicization of the faith. Having failed to realize his ambitions in the church hierarchy, Szymanowski plunged deeper and deeper into the administrative structures of the Third Reich. In 1935, he received a position in the Imperial Ministry of Church Affairs, where he was supposed to oversee the control of the church in the interests of the Nazi state. But even there, he couldn't hold out for long. His work style was described as extremely careless, and some high-ranking officials suspected him of playing a double game and having ties to the security service. In May 1937, he was dismissed. This was a turning point for Szymanowski. Disappointed in his career as a church official, he finally chose the security forces of the Nazi regime. In December 1938, he officially left the church. Now his path lay through the Gestapo, and eventually the Einsatzgruppen, the punitive units that would become synonymous with terror in the occupied lands. After his dismissal from the ministry, Ernst Szymanowski finally abandons his former life. In 1936, he joined the SS, the elite formations of the Nazi Party, designed to be a pillar of the new order. He is promoted to the rank of Untersturmführer, and he begins his journey up the ladder within the security forces. His service in the SS opened up new perspectives for him. He sought to prove his loyalty to the regime and rise above it. During the Second World War, his career developed rapidly. In 1940, he served in the army during the French campaign. However, his military career quickly gives way to an administrative one. He is called up to serve in the General Directorate of Imperial Security RSHA, the agency responsible for political repression, surveillance, and the destruction of enemies of the Reich. At the RSHA, he completed internships in several departments at once: the Gestapo, the Criminal Police, and the SD Security Service. This knowledge made him an ideal candidate to work in the darkest and dirtiest operations of the Nazi regime. On June 1, 1941, he was appointed head of the Gestapo office in Opole, now Opole, Poland. His main task was the deportation of Jews, organizing the deportation of thousands of people to death camps. It was at this time that he made a fateful decision to change his last name. Szymanowski becomes Biberstein. Perhaps he believed that a new surname, more German, would help hide his Polish roots and ensure career growth within an increasingly radicalized system. Create your own death army. On July 14, 1942, Ernst Biberstein received a new post that would forever define his place in history. He was appointed commander of Einsatzkommando 6, part of Einsatzgruppe C. These mobile punitive detachments accompanied the German troops in the occupied territories and had one task: the mass extermination of undesirable elements, Jews, gypsies, communists, partisans, and anyone whom the Nazi ideology considered enemies. The headquarters of the Einsatzkommando 6 was located in Rostov-on-Don. Her field of activity included Taganrog, Novocherkassk, Shakhty, and other settlements. In these places, Biberstein's unit conducted raids, arrests, and mass executions. The methods were the most barbaric: executions, the burial of living people, and the use of gas wagons, mobile gas chambers of death. At the Nuremberg trials, Biberstein later confessed, "According to my recollections, when I was in charge of Einsatzkommando 6, approximately 2,000 to 3,000 people were executed, some in gas wagons, some shot." He told how he personally witnessed the murder process. People were driven into sealed trucks, where exhaust gases were supplied, causing a slow, painful death. Biberstein not only controlled the process, he gave orders for the destruction of groups of prisoners, sometimes 50 to 65 people at a time. It became a routine job for him. Murder statistics, lists of spent bullets, schedules for the use of vehicles, everything turned into cold administrative reports. There was no need for sadism. Everything was done in an organized, systematic manner, with precision to the number of corpses per day. Violation of orders and internal conflicts in the SS. Despite his cold efficiency and dedication to the system, Ernst Biberstein did not always follow the Nazi logic flawlessly. In the summer of 1943, he found himself at the center of a small but important scandal within the SS. In June 1943, the Einsatzkommando 6 received an order. Part of its personnel should be redeployed to fight partisan movements in the occupied territories. In the face of the increasing resistance of the Soviet partisans, this task was considered a priority. However, Biberstein refused to fully comply with the order. He delayed sending his men to the front line, arguing that it was necessary to continue special operations, mass executions of civilians, arrests and purges of Jews in the cities of the Rostov region. Such a refusal was perceived as a serious violation of discipline. The SS strictly monitored the execution of orders, especially in matters of anti-partisan struggle, which in Himmler's eyes was the most important front. An internal investigation conducted by the SS command established the fact of insubordination. Biberstein was punished. He was given 13 days of house arrest. Technically, it looked like a light punishment. But in a structure where personal loyalty and unconditional obedience to orders were sacred, such a misdemeanor could seriously undermine a career. After the incident, he continued his service, but the atmosphere in the SS structure was gradually changing. The war was coming to its tragic end for the Third Reich, and even the most loyal officers began to realize that their world was collapsing. Germany's defeat and flight. By 1944, the situation on the fronts had changed radically. The Red Army pressed the German troops in the east, and the Allies launched an offensive in the west. Clouds were gathering over the Reich, and the death machine was beginning to crack at the seams. The Einsatzkommandos that had previously operated in the occupied lands of the Soviet Union began to disband or retreat along with army units. For Ernst Biberstein, this meant relocation and new tasks. He was transferred to the economic department of the civil administration in the operational zone of the Adriatic coast, in the city of Trieste, now Italy. In the last years of the war, Trieste became one of the centers of Nazi terror in southern Europe. The SS, Gestapo, and Einsatzkommandos operated here, and Biberstein was once again in the thick of crimes. Arrests, deportations, and shootings of Jews and political prisoners continued almost until the very end of the war. But in April 1945, it became clear that collapse was inevitable. Germany surrendered, and Allied forces entered northern Italy. Biberstein realized what was waiting for him. His name appeared in SS documents, and his involvement in mass murder was known in narrow circles. It was deadly dangerous to stay in Trieste. At the end of April 1945, he escaped. After leaving his posts and archives, Biberstein secretly moved to Germany, to his native Nuremberg. He hoped to get lost among the millions of refugees, avoid trial and start a new life under a new name. But I couldn't hide. In Nuremberg, he was identified and arrested by British troops during a large-scale campaign to capture former SS and Gestapo personnel. During the interrogations, he tried to impersonate an ordinary official, claiming that he was engaged only in administrative work. But the documents and testimonies of the surviving victims suggested otherwise. Pardon and release. On April 10, 1948, at the Nuremberg Einsatzgruppen trial, Ernst Biberstein was found guilty of participating in the mass murders committed by the Einsatzgruppen 6. His sentence was clear and harsh: death by hanging. However, in 1951, during a wave of retrials of Nazi criminals, his death sentence was commuted to life imprisonment. While imprisoned in Landsberg prison, Biberstein turned to the church again. In 1953, he was officially accepted back into the religious community, the same church that he had once voluntarily abandoned in order to serve Nazism. On May 9, 1958, 10 years after his sentencing, Ernst Biberstein was released. He was among the last released Nazi criminals from the Landsberg prison. After his release, Biberstein returned to Nuremberg, the city where he spent his childhood and youth. Here he temporarily got a job in the church administration, as if trying to erase his terrible past and start a new life in post-war Germany. He lived for almost 3 more decades and died on December 8, 1986 in Nuremberg, quietly, without a public trial, without much publicity. Friends, that's the story. What do you think about this? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, put likes and write comments. Have a good day.